Hi there, I'm Dan Olsen, and I'm excited today to talk with you about how to create customer value. Let me share my screen real quick so you can see my slides. Creating customer value is one of product management's core responsibilities. So I want to share some advice with you on how to think about it and how to achieve it working with your product teams. For those of you that aren't familiar with my background, I want to share it just so you know where I'm coming from. I started out with a technical background. I coded from an early age. I was an electrical engineering major, and then my first job was actually designing nuclear submarines, which was a really fun job. But after doing that for a while, I realized, hey, I want to get more on the business side of things. And so I decided I want to go to business school, and I came out to Silicon Valley to attend Stanford Business School, and I've been living out here ever since. It was at business school that I learned about this career choice called product management. It wasn't as well known back then as it is today. I'm really excited to see how product management has taken off as a career. But I had never done it. So at the time, I asked people, hey, where's the best place to learn product management, since I had never done it? And at the time, most people told me Intuit would be a great place to learn. So I was fortunate to get a job at Intuit as a product manager, worked there for several years, learned a lot about product management, really enjoyed that. And then after Intuit, I was wanted to take my experience and apply it at startups. So I was a product leader at several startups. And what I do these days is basically product management training, consulting, and coaching. I've been doing that for 15 years now. And from the lessons that I learned from all that training, I wrote my book, The Lean Product Playbook, which kind of captures a lot of the frameworks and advice. I'm going to be sharing a subset of that in my talk today. I'm also a big believer in community and in sharing best practices. So 6.5 years ago, I founded Lean Product Meetup, where each month I bring in a top product or UX speaker. And with COVID, we've taken it online. So now people from around the world can check out our online events. And if you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website, dan-olsen.com. I've got my other talks posted there, my speaking schedule, blog posts, and so on. All right, what I want to jump in talking about customer value, a common question that a lot of feature teams ask themselves are, hey, what features should we build, right? As we're trying to figure out our roadmap or trying to figure out our backlog. And I think as common as this question is, it's actually not a good question to ask because it sends us down the wrong path, right? Instead of talking about features, I think we should be talking about what customer needs can we address. And that may seem like a subtle distinction, needs versus features, but it's actually quite profound. And if you want to focus on delivering customer value, you need to be grounded in customer needs. And this brings up the topic of problem space versus solution space, which I've mentioned in my book and some of my other talks. I'm not going to go into it as deeply, but I want to at least set a little foundation before we start talking about customer value frameworks. The problem space is basically a customer problem, need, or benefit that the product should address. That's what the problem space is. If you're familiar with the template for a user story, as a blank, I want a blank, so I can blank. That also helps you stay in the problem space. That last part, so I can, is basically the essence of how is this going to create value for the customer, right? So again, sticking to that template is a great way to make sure you stay in problem space. In contrast, solution space is a specific implementation or design to address the customer need. Let me give an example. Let's say I wanted to make it easier for people to share photos with their friends. That statement, share photos, make it easier to share photos with your friends, that lives in the problem space. There's no specific solution yet. It's just describing, the customer problem that we want to solve. If the very next thing I said was, oh yeah, and last month I launched an app that makes it easy to share photos with your friends, that app would be in the solution space. Or if I didn't build an app, but my friend Ellie is a great designer and Ellie created a set of mockups for me, those set of mockups would be in the solution space, right? So that's the difference. Problem space is what's the problem you're trying to solve. Solution is how are we going to actually solve the problem. And the biggest issue is many product teams and feature teams go running right into solution space, rushing in there without spending enough time thinking about the problem, right? So that's basically what we want to do. So it's true we have to build a solution, but we want to spend enough time in the problem space first. So let me illustrate this real quick with an example. I used to work at Intuit. One of our big products is TurboTax. For those of you in the US, you've probably heard of it. For those of you not in the US, basically in the United States, every year, each person has to file their own taxes and figure out how much they owe to the government and send in their money. Every year we have to file our income taxes. And it's can be a hassle, and basically TurboTax makes that easier. So back to problem space, solution space, TurboTax is a solution. It's a program, it's an application that you run. So we can say, hey, what's the problem that it's solving for people? You know, there can be different ways of stating it, but probably the most common way would be something like TurboTax, it helps me prepare my taxes, helps me do my taxes. And it's good to get clear on what that overall problem is, but that's not specific enough. And one of the keys to delivering customer value is you got to get really specific on the customer benefits and the problem space. And the metaphor that I like to think of is you got to peel the onion. So you start out with the outer layer of the onion saying, hey, it helps me prepare my taxes, then you want to peel it. And this is actually a fun part with your team. You kind of suspend judgment and say, hey, let's brainstorm what are all the different ways we can help people with their taxes, right? And here's an example of the output you might get from such an exercise. Here I've got 7 potential benefits: help me prepare my taxes, reduce my audit risk, check my return, save me time preparing taxes, save me time filing taxes, maximize my deductions, and cost less than a CPA, an accountant, right? This would be an example of trying to explore the problem space. And what we want to do is define it. This is actually one of product managers' main jobs. As I like to say, designers design, developers develop, product managers should define. And you'll find that, you might brainstorm a lot of different ones. You'll find that there is some kind of relatedness and order to this. We might find, for example, that these 3 benefits all have to do with improving the customer's confidence. Hey, I feel a lot more confident when I do my tax with a TurboTax, right? That's what I call a benefit ladder. And when you're organizing your problem space, you don't need multiple levels. 2 levels is good enough. Just have the atomic benefits, and then what's the overall benefit ladder that they ladder up to, right? So those 3 would go with improve my confidence. The next 2 would go with a completely different benefit of saving time. And then the last 2 would go with a completely distinct benefit of saving money. This is what I mean by a problem space definition. And I just want to show one so that your mind is thinking about customer needs as we go into the framework for understanding how to create customer value. So if you do this exercise and you brainstorm a lot of different customer needs, the next question that comes up is, great, that's great that we brainstorm dozens of needs. How should we decide which ones to focus on, right? How do we converge after we do the divergent thinking? And what we're really trying to answer here is, how do we deliver the most customer value? Which needs should we focus on to deliver the most customer value? And early in my career, when I was wrestling with this question, I created a framework that worked pretty well to answer this that I want to share with you. And that framework is importance versus satisfaction. So let me explain it to you, and then we'll show how to apply it, and we'll illustrate it with a couple of examples. Basically, importance is for whatever user need we're talking about: save time, save money, improve my confidence. How important is that to the target customer? And I'm skipping my my product market fit pyramid in the interest of time. But for those of you familiar with it, the foundation of the pyramid is target customer. So every time we score importance or satisfaction, it's in relation to a certain target customer segment, right? So for this segment, how important is the need from low to high? And on the x-axis, we have satisfaction. This measures, great, how satisfied are people with how they're getting that need met today? When it comes to saving money on your taxes, how satisfied are you with how you're getting that done today? That's basically what we're trying to score. And what I've shown here is low, high, low, high. This is more of a qualitative approach. In a second, I'll show you more of a quantitative approach. But let's talk about the space. Let's divide it into quadrants so we can explore it and try to reach some conclusions about where we want to be in this space. In the bottom left quadrant, this is saying the need that we're talking about is low importance to customers, and they have low satisfaction with how they're getting it met today. The bottom right quadrant is saying, hey, the need has low importance for the target customer, and they have high satisfaction with how it's getting met today. At the end of the day, neither one of those quadrants are worth going after because it's fundamentally a low importance need, right? We have limited time and resources. We want to focus on high importance needs, so we're delivering more value. And nobody does this on purpose, but what happens is they form a hypothesis or an assumption that the need they're trying to address is high importance, but they didn't go out and test and validate that with the target customer. So we want to avoid those 2 quadrants. Now, in the upper right quadrant, we have high importance of user need. So that's better than low importance, but we also have high satisfaction. So customers are telling us, yes, and it's an important need, but I'm pretty satisfied with how that's being met today. That's the definition of a competitive market. And the first example I always think of here is Google Internet Search, right? If we say, hey, what user need does that solve? It would be something like helps me find information online, right? And So it's definitely high importance for most people. Finding what you need to find online is high importance. But it's not like people walk around saying, gosh, with this Google, I can't find anything. It's not working for me, right? You might have to revise your query. You might have to go to page 2, but you usually find what you're looking for. So it works pretty well. And again, that's a competitive market. And I'm not saying you shouldn't enter a competitive market, but you hear people say you need to be 10x better. This is a quadrant where you need to be 10x better and really clear on how you're going to be better than the incumbents that are already there. All right, that leaves the last quadrant here in the upper left. High importance of user needs, so that's good. And we have low satisfaction. So that's where opportunities live. They live in that upper quadrant because people are saying, hey, this is really important to me, and I'm not that happy or satisfied with how it's getting met today. And I will say these opportunities aren't there forever. There are plenty of other product teams and companies trying to identify and address these opportunities. But if you analyze the market and the customers, you can find windows of opportunity to address this. And what I like about this framework is it's a visual framework, right? So what I'm saying, let's say we have a product like represented by this red dot, and we go and we ask the customers or users of that product to rate the importance of the need that it addresses for them, and how satisfied are they with how well it addresses that need. And we get some values, we can average those values. And if we get the X, Y coordinates, we can plot it basically with the values that we get for satisfaction importance, and we're gonna end up with a rectangle. And the bottom line is, hey, the bigger that rectangle is, the area of that rectangle is a proxy for how much customer value that product creates. The bigger the rectangle, the more value. If there's another product, say, represented by this green dot, that addresses a higher importance user need with a higher level of satisfaction, then its rectangle is just going to be that much bigger. It's going to create that much more customer value. And another way to think about it, when you start to interpret the framework this way, we realize, hey, if that green dot is the best product in the market, then the area to create customer value, the opportunity to create customer value, is just the area to the right of that dot, right, in this space. So there's an opportunity to better meet that need with higher levels of satisfaction. And if that green dot was your product, then one way to think about it is just, hey, we want to move our dot to the right. We want to do a better job addressing that need and delivering higher levels of satisfaction, right? So basically the area to the right is the opportunity to create customer value from wherever the best product is in the marketplace. And what we can conclude from that is that basically to assess the opportunity, the closer you are to this corner up here, the greater the opportunity to create customer value. If you plot the needs, the closer you are to that corner, the more opportunity there is to create customer value. And as I mentioned briefly, you can use this framework qualitatively with like low, medium, high with your team to just like put each customer need on a sticky note and place it. Hopefully you go then and test and validate the importance and satisfaction with your customers, but you can even use it as a thinking tool with your team. In a second, I'll talk to you about how to do it quantitatively, but let's say we did that. Let's say we wrote each of these benefits, save time, improve confidence, and save money on a sticky note, and we placed them, had a discussion with our team, and we placed them where we thought they belonged. Well, the way to score them is basically just to draw a line from that upper left corner to the center of the Post-it note, and then the shorter the line, the bigger the opportunity to create value. And we can rank order them and say save time is number 1, improve confidence is number 2, save money is number 3. So that's how you can use this as a qualitative thinking tool so your team can focus on what's going to really create the most value. If you want to get quantitative about it, which you can also do, you can use survey questions to get numerical values for these, right? Let's imagine we had a big user base and we want to survey them and ask them, how important is this need to you? I recommend using a 5-point importance scale, as you can see here. And then on the satisfaction, we would ask them, how satisfied are you with how this need is being met today, basically, right? Now for satisfaction, I recommend a double-sided scale because they can either be satisfied or dissatisfied. And so that ends up being a 7-point scale that I recommend using. And you can imagine if you had a large customer base, you could get, statistically significant data for these survey results. But again, you don't have to be quantitative, you can use it qualitatively. If you are doing it quantitatively, well, now we can actually calculate the area to the right. I mentioned the opportunity is the area to the right. Well, if we have numbers, then we can actually have a formula for the area to the right. It's just the importance times 1 minus satisfaction, where the importance and satisfaction are expressed from 0 to 1, right? And this next slide, I'm really excited to share with you. I didn't actually have it in my book because I created it after I wrote the Lean Product Playbook. But I always wanted a way to visualize the opportunity score, and I finally created that way here. So you can see a heat map. Again, we have importance and satisfaction, and now we have a heat map with what the opportunity score is. And you can see it exactly validates what we were saying. The upper left quadrant is where there's the opportunity to create value. The closer you are to the upper left point, the more opportunity there's to create value. And you can see that these two bottom quadrants don't offer a big opportunity because it's low importance. And again, the upper right doesn't offer as big an opportunity because it's high satisfaction, even though it's high importance. So again, you can use it qualitatively or quantitatively to figure things out, what's going to create the most value. What I want to do now is walk through an example of two products, one of which succeeded and one of which didn't, and try to apply this idea of customer value and importance and satisfaction to see if we can kind of explain why did one succeed and the other one not. And those two products that I want to talk about are the Segway, personal transporter, and Uber. And hopefully most of you are familiar, I'm sure everyone's familiar with Uber. Hopefully most of you are familiar with Segway. Let's start out with Segway and talk about that. What was their hypothesis? And when it came out, the company thought it was going to revolutionize the world. Like everyone was walking, and instead of walking around, everyone's going to get one of these. Everyone's going to have one and get around on these instead. So let's go through and identify what was the user need that they were trying to address. I would say it's something like travel short distances quickly. That was the need that they wanted to address. And in their opinion, it was a high importance user need. And they thought that, well, walking is low satisfaction and the Segway personal transport is going to be high satisfaction. That was their hypothesis, right? But how did it play out? As you probably know, most people didn't buy one, right? And it turns out that most people didn't, their hypothesis wasn't right for the mass market. Most people didn't consider that speed benefit important enough. Also, with the high cost of the device, given the choice between walking and buying a Segway, most people chose to just keep walking around as their solution for that problem, right? But it does turn out that there were two customer segments where it did resonate and create enough customer value. And that, again, underscores the importance of everything we do in importance and satisfaction is tied back to a particular customer segment. So there were two segments that found the speed benefit important. I want to give you a minute to think, see if you can think about it. I'm guessing most people here can guess at least one, if not both of them. Who did it actually get resonance with, the Segway? The first is mall cops. We got Paul Blart here. He loves riding his. And the second target market was tourists, right? You might see these in your town, people cruising around on your Segway, right? So it didn't get resonance with the mass market, but it got resonance with those two. And we can try to answer why. Why did it fail with the mass market and why did it get resonance with these two? What is different about these two groups from the mass market and what do they have in common that makes it appealing? And in some of my other talks, I focused on segmentation techniques. We talk about demographic versus psychographic versus behavioral versus needs-based. Basically, there's a behavioral thing here where they walk a lot, right? When a tourist goes to a new town and they want to check it out, those are long distances. And so using a Segway instead of walking creates a lot of customer value. Mall cop, they've got to walk all through the mall and they're doing it every day. So again, there's value there, right? So unfortunately though, because those markets weren't big enough, the Segway shut down and they recently announced that they're discontinuing, the product. All right, let's switch to Uber now, right? Uber, what need are they addressing, right? What need are they addressing? It'd probably be something like be driven somewhere, drive me somewhere. And the idea here is, you want to be driven somewhere without your car, where you're not the one driving, right? Maybe you have to go to the airport. It doesn't make sense to leave your car there. Maybe you need to go to a medical appointment and you're not able to drive afterwards, or maybe you just don't have a car, right? So the idea is, hey, be driven somewhere. That's a high importance need. And I think for a lot of people, it is a high importance need. And what we can ask is, well, before Uber was around, how did people get that need met? And the way people got that need met was with taxis, cabs, right? That's how they would get it met. And what you want to do is say, well, how satisfied were people with taxis as a solution for being driven somewhere? And, it can vary obviously in different towns and cities. In Manhattan, there probably wasn't as big a deal because you just go out in the street and hail one. But here in San Francisco Bay Area, I think it was more common to how it was in other places. The way it would work, I remember I'd be in my apartment, I'd call the taxi cab company and say, hey, can I get a taxi at this address? And they say, sure, there'll be one there in 10 minutes. And sometimes it would arrive in 10 minutes. Sometimes it wouldn't arrive. And 15 minutes later, no cab, you'd call back and say, hey, what happened to the cab? And they say, I don't know, we'll send another one, it'll be there in 10 minutes, right? And we can talk about overall satisfaction with the solution of taxis. We can also break it down into different dimensions or attributes. We can say, how are you with the punctuality of the taxi, right? That's what I was just talking about. But we could also ask, how satisfied are you with how clean the taxi was? How satisfied were you with how polite the driver was? How satisfied were you with how safe you felt while you were being driven? How satisfied were you with how convenient it was to pay the person at the end of the ride, right? So we can dimensionalize it. And there are obviously good taxi cab drivers out there, but you can imagine some low satisfaction scores on a lot of those dimensions. And so that's what basically put taxis in the upper left quadrant as meeting a high importance need, but not necessarily doing it with high satisfaction, doing it with low satisfaction. That creates an opportunity for Uber to come in and offer a higher satisfaction solution compared to taxis. That's going to create a lot of customer value, right? So hopefully you see how we can use this framework to explain why Uber succeeded and Segway didn't, right? You can also use importance versus satisfaction to assess your current product. What I just got done showing is how we can use it to assess opportunities that we can go after if we haven't gone after them yet. You can also apply this framework to see how is our current product doing? How much customer value is each part of my product creating, right? And you can think about it for your overall product, but you can also break it down into parts of your product or features. And I want to close out with an example of that real world data where I did that basically. And I had a product, had a lot of features. We were trying to figure out what should we improve? How are we doing today? What do customers think? And what should we improve to create the most customer value? And so we focused in on 13 of the key features, 13 key features out of all the features. And we actually had a large customer base. And so we surveyed them and asked them the importance and satisfaction questions that I just showed with you. We had a large sample size, so we were able to actually calculate numbers instead of just using high, medium, low. So now you can see the scales for importance and satisfaction go to 100. You can see 13 points there. Each of those dots is one of the 13 key features plotted with its corresponding satisfaction and importance values. And the number to the right is just the satisfaction number, so you can, kind of see it more easily. The first thing that I noticed as a product manager for this product was this feature. What is this saying? Customers are telling us, hey, this feature is 100% importance. That's huge. And we are delivering 98% satisfaction. That is awesome. I was like, good job, team. That was my first thought, was amazing job creating customer value. My second thought was, I don't want to spend any resources on that. Like, that's a well-met need. It's all the way in the upper right. We're good. Let's go figure out where there's a bigger opportunity to create customer value with our precious resources. So we had a cloud of features here. We had this one down here, but this one here was relatively high importance and relatively low satisfaction. So we use this framework to prioritize that as the top feature that we said, hey, we need to do a better job here. Let's go investigate what the issues are with this feature and improve them in the next release of our product. We did, and that point moved to the right. It created a lot of customer value and improved overall satisfaction with our product. So again, you can use it qualitatively as I described. Here's an example of using it quantitatively. You can use it to assess opportunities. You can use it to assess your existing product. So I hope you find these tools helpful as you're trying to figure out how to create customer value in your products. With that, I just want to thank you for your time. I hope it was helpful. If you could take a moment to give your feedback, I'd love to hear your feedback on my talk, what you liked, what could have been better. And also, if you want like a copy of my slides, there's a short survey here. It's anonymous, bit.ly/industrydan. You can put in your email there if you want to get a copy of my slides. If you want to just point your camera at that QR code, it should open the link up on your phone. And if you want to reach me, again, on Twitter, I'm at Dan Olsen. My website is dan-olsen.com. And if you want to learn about my meetup that I run every month, which again is online now, you can go to meetup.com/lean-product. Thanks a lot. And I want to wish you the best of luck with your products.